This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have an amazing guest. He's an FSWA award-winning college sports writer and the lead college football analyst at NBC Sports and Rotoworld. It's the one and only Eric Froton. Welcome to the show, my man.
Oh gosh, Kevin, such a kind intro. I appreciate it, and excited to be here. Obviously, we've been friends for a while, and ever since you started doing this award-winning podcast, if I might add, I was actually lucky enough in February at the FSGA Winter Conference to be able to personally hand you on stage at the FSGA your award for the specific podcast. So it is, in fact, I who am honored, my good friend, Kevin.
Well, I appreciate that. And it couldn't have been more perfect to get that award and have you on the stage with that big hug, that big wingspan ready for me. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment, something I won't forget. And you were definitely a part of that. So it's an honor to have you on here. You know, we do go back a ways. We're now seeing each other multiple times a year. It seems FSGA and
it's
SFB Live.
Now we're interviewed. Oh, yeah. All the time. Good old Kevin. Yeah.
There we go. So for listeners and viewers that may be unfamiliar with your work, what's your current role with NBC Sports and Rotoworld?
Sure. I'm the lead college football analyst at NBC Sports, Rotoworld. I am currently in the midst of NFL draft time. I write all the offensive line and defensive profiles for the big NFL draft. For instance, when a player is drafted immediately, and NBC has their ticker, their blurb ticker, and a pre-written, nice 200-300 word or so capsule goes up. I write all of those. So I've been in the midst of studying. And actually, I just dropped, and it'll go. I'm sure when this goes live at some point, it will be up already. But I just dropped my 2024 NFL mock draft betting analysis edition. So my full soup to nuts, every single first round pick. I have the betting odds and analysis for each and every pick. It's over 6,000 words. So it's I've been doing this each year. I've dived into it headlong to the best of my ability. I think I'm the only person who really writes a column to this specificity about the NFL draft and the betting market around it. And so, I'm excited to put that out and have most of the time when you read a mock draft, it's very light reading. It's okay, this slot, that slot. You don't really generally learn much. I put a lot into this in terms of information. So even if you don't like what your team selects as far as a player, you're going to at least have a pretty soup to nuts evaluation of where they are and what the market looks like for each of those picks. So at least you'll learn something, even if you disagree with me. That's the idea, is always learning.
There you go. And it's, your content is always filled with passion, whether it's the written stuff, video stuff. You got a passion for sports. Where did that all begin for you? Were sports a big part of your life growing up?
Sure. Well, my father, who is right up here, right? You can see that is the 1963 Wellsville Red Sox. My dad, Rick Froton, we can look up in the minor league baseball reference, website. He's on there. He was a farmhand for the Boston Red Sox. I grew up in the Boston area, Wilmington, Massachusetts. My dad is a Hall of Famer in the Wilmington Sports Hall of Fame. So he was a great pitcher. So I basically grew up on a mound. So I was a pitcher. Also, he played hockey, and I did not. I transitioned. It was going to be hockey. That's how it is in the Northeast, as everybody knows. It's you either play hockey in the winter or you play basketball. And because, as you mentioned, the wingspan, I'm kind of on the tall side. I'm 6'3". I gravitated towards basketball, which I'm glad I did. No offense to the hockey people. Because now I live in San Diego. I play a ton of basketball. with my buddies and what have you. But that being said, I also love hockey too. Being from the Northeast, you don't have a choice but to love hockey. I do love hockey. I played in the Saugus Route 1 Hockey Town Deck Hockey League for about 6 years when I was younger, and I was a physical stay-at-home defenseman and enforcer. I was a straight up goon. Don't take this smile, for granted, guys. Yeah, I'm a power forward, and in on the deck hockey, my job was to move people out of the crease, which I was happy to do, and to go in the corners and to fight. So I loved it. I love hockey.
I love it. The goon. I think that's a great little tidbit right there. You're like one of those Hanson brothers from what's that hockey movie way back when?
Slapshot, of course,
Slapshot.
legendary.
Yeah.
One of the 5 all-time greatest sports movies. Slapshot there. So
Yeah, those Hanson brothers. So
go
now
out and watch that. If you haven't seen it, younger generation, Gen Z, go out and watch Slapshot. Do not pass go. Do not click on it. You go. You'll thank me later.
Absolutely. Tonight, watch Slapshot. I love that.
Yes, tonight.
So
That's right.
So as a sports fan growing up, again with the Boston background, you had some good memories. What was the worst memory as a sports fan growing up for you?
My worst memory, I would say. Well, the good thing is you had a lot of bad memories as a Boston sports fan in the 80s and 90s. When I was a kid, and the 90s or so. So that era, like pre Drew Bledsoe, where they popped in, was a horror show. Like the early 90s, I remember those. Like I was young, but I remember them. That was really bad. Um, if I had to go with one growing up, worst loss as a sports fan, it's 2003 ALCS Yankees Red Sox. I was at Avalon on Lansdowne Street in Boston because it was an away game, and I got to watch Pedro give up that home run and Grady Little not take him out and do all that. Yeah, that was bad scene. It was the Aaron Boone home run.
Yeah,
it was the Aaron Boone home run from 2003. That was a horror show, and it just made 2004 the Red Sox go on to win that much sweeter. But at that point, like it was, it's never going to happen for us. The Yankees will always beat the Red Sox. It is simply how my life is destined to be as a Boston sports fan, and luckily that all turned around. And once it did in 2004, I actually left for San Diego in 2005. I had seen what I needed to see. They won. I can leave and start the next chapter of my life.
Was that Red Sox victory your favorite sports moment of all time?
It depends, right? It's up there. It's up there. It's definitely one of those special. But I would say, if I'm going with a sports mode, I'm going to go with something personal that I did as opposed to that was more a circumstantial thing.
Yeah.
So I would say the most important sports moment of my life was in 2009 when I went to Knoxville, to Neyland Stadium, the big house in the South, which is, I believe, the biggest in terms of below the Mason-Dixon one. I think it's the biggest at the time stadium in the South. That is the venue of Tennessee, the Volunteers, where they hosted Tim Tebow, the Prince Percy Harvin, and Urban Meyer, and that biblical Florida team during Tebow's senior year. And got to watch, while I was in the corner end zone seat, got to watch Tim Tebow throw a touchdown to Percy Harvin, who I had Percy Harvin when he was a true freshman, and there were glimpses as a true freshman. It was kind of a leap of faith to keep him as a sophomore, but I got those 2 years out of him in college fantasy in my league. So like those 2 years, it was a magical fantasy experience having Percy Harvin. He will always be in the Ring of Honor at the CCC as a Nordic god. And that moment was when I was like, oh my God. Look, that whole weekend, that whole experience of going to an SEC, a big time SEC game with Florida invading, being there on Thursday, going out to bars and seeing what that entails, how the entire town of Knoxville was taken over for 3 straight days. Like Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the finale. Everybody clears out Sunday. Like to see that experience, it's nothing. I've been to several away games to the Patriots. Several Patriots. I was there for the whole Tom Brady 2-decade magical run. It's the greatest anyone's ever had in sports. I've seen it all. There's nothing like a big time SEC Big Ten football game on Saturday. That tailgate, that environment, that feeling. The NFL will never duplicate it. As hard as you want to try to tell me, I've been there. I've seen it. I went to 10 games this year as part of my job. I would say the overall highlight of my life is getting to be on the field for some of the amazing games that I was this season. Penn State, Michigan was there in Penn State. Washington, Oregon in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 championship. UNC at Clemson, how amazing an experience that was with my good friend Sean Stellato on the sideline. I got him the sideline pass. I got Stellato the freaking sideline pass before he was on TV now and was the big time, because I played AU basketball with Stellato, so that's my boy. So I got to have some amazing experiences this year. And Notre Dame, Ohio State, being right on the field for that final. Literally, I ran on the field as soon as the final play happened. We didn't even know what the outcome was, but I was right.
I remember that. I remember that footage. Yeah.
Yes, almost got run over by the offensive line. It was great. So, I got to basically live my dream this year, and I can't wait for 2024 with now USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon joining the Big Ten. I was on the East Coast last year. Probably going to stay on the West Coast now, where I can cover the Big Ten for NBC and be able to hit Arizona and Vegas. I'm excited. I'm excited for hitting a bunch of West Coast games after being on the East Coast last year.
I love it. It's amazing. I love seeing you out there. You're crushing it. But it's pretty cool that you mentioned the Percy Harvin game. That sounds like just a dream experience.
Oh.
For me, like, one of my favorite moments as a Seahawks fan, it's that Percy Harvin kickoff return for the touchdown in the Super Bowl, because that sealed the deal, right? I mean, the first half game was over, but you still got Peyton Manning. Miracles happen. But as soon as Percy took that back, game over, lights out. We got a little Percy Harvin love to share there. I love that.
Right. Absolutely. Universal. Everyone should love Percy Harvin.
Everyone should love Percy Harvin. So when did you discover fantasy sports? And obviously, if the world doesn't know, they need to know. You are the world's greatest college football. You're like the guy that's out there leading the charge for college football fantasy. And I would like
to think I'm certainly on the forefront of spearheading it. I consider myself to be, and I think it is with great credibility to be, if not one of the very, very first college fantasy football adoptees. I've been doing it for 24 years. So the genesis of that, the genesis of fantasy sports was many, many moons ago, even before this, the shop teacher at Wilmington High School in Wilmington, Massachusetts, Mr. Robert E. Dicey, got together myself and a pack of young lads who were big sports guys, and he started a fantasy baseball league. It was like, all right, guys, here's we go. You guys are expressed interest. You're all athletic. You're all in there. All right, and in the now demolished, it doesn't even exist anymore. To be honest, like there's a whole new high school now, but at the time it was in the teacher's lounge. So that for itself, for a freshman like myself, I was a freshman. I was the youngest one in the group. There was a bunch of upperclassmen, but they snuck me in there, because I was pretty vociferous about my enjoyment of it. So we started a fantasy baseball league, and I had the 9th overall pick out of 10 guys. My first ever pick was Roberto Alomar. of any fantasy anything, it was Roberto Alomar, who's a stud,
Robbie.
5 categories stud.
Yeah,
The Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And then I went on to, obviously experiment with NFL shortly thereafter. I was like, oh, what's going to stop me from NFL? And then about, a ways down the road, one of my close friends, Rich McKenna, who is a defensive coordinator for Framingham State College now, was then a linebacker at St. Francis Xavier College up in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, Canada. I can't make that up.
No, absolutely not.
Right before he shipped off to Canada, and my last name is Froton. So I am French. I come from French, Canadian, Swedish ancestry. So I got love for Canadians. Everybody knows that. So before he shipped off, he was like, "All right, we're doing a college fantasy league, and that's how it's going to be. Go and pick up your Phil Steele magazine. You see this stack? This is a stack. This is a stack of Phil Steele college football preview magazines. And anybody who has anything to do with college football knows that is the Bible. That is what you do when you study college football and you want to get, at least back in the day. Now things move digitally, but listen, in the old days as an OG, Phil, that was the Bible, baby. Phil Steele. I feel still you should see the condition here. We'll pull out just one. I mean, the condition of some of these Phil Steele's guys. I mean, I gotta tape the binder. This isn't pretty.
Nice.
We got look at. I mean, I keep all my notes for each season in here. I tab each one of them out. Look at the tabs.
It's beautiful.
There's no faking tabs, guys. I mean, there's nothing
not.
less cool than being out here in San Diego in 2012. In the 2012 time frame, and breaking out the Phil Steele magazine on the beach in your lounge chair. Yeah, that was me. I'm there looking at my keepers. Now this is baseball keepers, but I threw them in there anyways. But I have so I would go handwritten notes for each position grouping. This is back in the day because if I write things down, then I remember them. And here's the 2012 roster, right? It's all by hand. I mean, we when we started it, this is obviously we're down the road here in 2012, but when we started this in my backyard, when my parents were at the cottage in Rhode Island at the time, this is a while ago, it was pre SoCal, and so I had all the boys over, and we broke every piece of plastic lawn furniture in my yard. We got a keg. And Jobber Park, that's my wiffle ball field, because I had a wiffle ball field growing up in my backyard, because of course I constructed a wiffle ball field in my backyard. And if I get my way, I'm not going to give too much away, but at the Fantasy Football Expo this year, I've made this pitch 3 years in a row. I don't want to give anyone away my idea, but I mean, I have assaulted Bob Long with some wiffle ball centric ideas. I'm just going to put it that way.
For sure. No, I know two things about you. You love college football, and you're also a huge advocate to bring wiffle ball to the Fantasy Football Expo. I've had those late night conversations.
And beer dye.
You did that. You effectively did that this year, right?
Like I've already kind of done it with beer.
FSGA.
I brought beer dye to FSGA. It's here. It's not going away. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And to the point of not only it's so great, and I'm a purist when it comes to beer dye. As you know, I don't know if I'm not a big drinker. I very rarely do I drink. I will do it probably at the expo because it's an occasion, but maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I'm very rare. So more the act of throwing the dice, the game itself is what's special to me. So we didn't consume a single drink, I don't think, during it. It was all water in the cups, at the conference. I am here to be respectful to the social norms and mores of society while still enjoying the splendor that is the greatest drinking sport. It's not a drinking game. It's a drinking sport because sports incorporate defense, right?
Yeah.
And Beard Eye is all defense, baby. All defense. The exact opposite of beer pong, which is all offense, no defense. All defense, baby. That's what separates the greats. May I say, Will Tye. I don't know what to pitch with Will. He's one of the chairmen of the FSGA. He's awesome. He's a mensch. He is my Beard Eye partner in the scope in the scene. All right. Anytime I attend the FSGA or the FF Expo, hopefully Will's there because that's my partner. He is a lifer. He believes in it like I do. I am proud to have him because you got to have a good partner. That's like rule number one of Beard Eye. Choose your partner wisely because you win and you lose together and you can't complain. That's just how you're like, look, that's your partner. And you got to be through them with thick and thin, and it's a special bond. And I only have two partners in my group, like over the past 30 years, I've only got two that I will accept as my partners, and that's the great DDG Dave Gilbert, and of course, Steve McDowell, currently stationed at MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command, and a stone cold killer, on and off the table.
And now Will Tye is on that list, and he's a
Will
Cleveland
Tye
guy.
is number 3.
Okay,
there's only 3 people on Earth that have that can be called like my true. You are my partner if there's a game. If it's for civilization, like the classic, if the aliens come down and they're like, all right, well, one Beard Eye game to save Earth, and it's up to me. Well, there's only 3 people.
There you
there's
go.
only 3 of them. So Will is on that list. It's a very special place to be.
Nice. Now Will is a Cleveland guy, so he'll be at the Expo. He has to be at the Expo. He's there in Cleveland, transporting people back and forth. So
he's
essential.
Well, actually, this is at Boston this year. It's on my home turf.
Oh, FSGA. Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
My home turf.
FSGA Boston.
I might be cooking something up for it.
Okay. So I plan on.
I might have had
some
high level conversations surrounding some entertainment. I'm trying to make some things happen. I don't know. The problem is we're in the Weston Seaport.
Yeah.
Dude, the Seaport might as well be the freaking Beverly Hills of Boston now. When I was going to UMass Boston, which I'm a graduate of, which is down there in Southie, Seaport was nice, but I mean, we're not going to be able to get a room around there. And, FSGA, we're trying to do things on it responsibly. So I'm going to see if I can cajole the front desk Weston people to see if we can roll in some entertainment.
I love it.
We'll just call it that way. Some entertainment.
Sounds good. Now, with football, with fantasy, like what hooked you? What was it that hooked you? I mean, obviously, it was early on. What was it that made you feel like this is something I love doing?
Well, I really was kind of on the forefront in some ways. Not so much on the baseball. The baseball had already existed for a while when I was around. And NFL's, it's been around for a while. But college fantasy, on that fateful day when we broke all that lawn furniture, sorry, Dale and Rick, on that day, I had never cared about college football at all. I'm from the Northeast. We don't have this rich, storied college football program, tradition. There's Boston College, and I went to a state school. And if you know anything about the Boston dynamics of the collegiate, landscape, there's like 300 colleges within a 2-hour drive of the Boston City Center. There's a million institutions of learning, it feels like. BC is the one that's universally sort of all colleges, all the MIT and the BC and the UMass and the BU and the Harvard, all of us in Tufts, we all come together in our distaste for BC. So that's like the one unifying thing around Boston is BC people. So in a fun, lighthearted way. So I never had a love for BC. Those are the rich kids. I was a state school kid. So that was never my way. I never had any big college football draw. I started paying attention to this thanks to the great and the iconic Luke Staley. All right. If you don't know who Luke Staley is, the great, there he is. BYU, All-American, 6'1", 235. He ran a 4.4 flat. 4-4 flat at 6'1", 235. Okay, like good luck. Jonathan Taylor type stuff. That's what we're talking about. This is back before people did that. People didn't even conceive of that. Fortunately, shoulder injuries really derailed his potential pro career with the Detroit Lions. That being said, I won my league that year. And then watching the avalanche of games you have thrown at you, and it's only grown. There's only more teams, 134 now. But listen, if you want entertainment, you want action, right? I'm going from the NFL where it's very, very structured. You get what we give you, and you say thank you for what we give you. And what it's going to involve is a lot of commercials. We know that. You're going to see, and it's going to be the same ones time after time. You're going to have to sit there and deal with it. And you don't have any skippability, right? Is what I'll kind of call it. Because there's no other options on Sunday night, on Monday night, on Thursday night. There's no options to click anywhere. And there shouldn't be, in the NFL's mind, because they are the big dog and they are the rulers of society. And we take what they give us. With college football, I'm watching this on Saturday and I'm going, oh, it's a wall of games you're getting. And it doesn't matter if it's kickoff, which starts an hour earlier, out here on the West Coast, 9 a.m., out there on the East Coast, a brisk noon. But it's going for that nighttime slate. First off, there's no such thing as a nighttime slate for the NFL. Okay, you get a game, right? Starts at 8. Enjoy it. For us West Coasters, look, that's done at 8 p.m., 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's over.
Yeah.
It's all night, baby. It's rocking and rolling all night long. You get a full Pac-12 after RIP, but you get a full Mountain West / Big Ten avalanche of games that is going to be coming now. You Big 12 now, because that's Arizona. Like, you've got a whole host of games that are coming. You get like 20 of them that are coming in that night slate from 6 p.m. on, on the East Coast, even. Like, that's 6, 7, 8. And it's a cascade. It's not blocks. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just, there's different start time. It doesn't matter. So all up and down the dial, there's options. And now with technology being how it is, I have every channel that exists known to mankind. And for college football, that matters. You get ESPN Plus. You get all that. It gives you everything. You get everything you want. So I'm never sitting there like, oh, Jesus, there's no game that'll flick to, and I'm bored. And I'm looking like, no. Okay, in one of my 27 leagues, college fantasy and or Camps Canton, which I know that's nothing for you best ball people, but a lot of them are best balls. You have to be. I can't manage 27 teams, but
yeah.
In those, I'm going to find a guy that I'm either playing against or I have in my lineup that is going to be relevant in one of these games, or I'm going to want to see what the outcome is one of these games for projecting player performance going forward. Do I like this guy? Do I want to pick this guy up? Because unlike the NFL, where you get 32 teams, look, there's plenty of guys out there on 134 teams I ain't got to watch yet. Yeah. And I ain't going to get to watch until they're out there on the field, because everything turns over every year. So, there's so much knowledge. I can never do enough. There's never enough information that I can inhale on a week-to-week basis in college football. I always can do more. I'm always thinking there's more I need to do. I'm never doing enough. And I'm lucky enough that in my profession, they allow me to do this. So it's all I have to focus on. And,
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of, you're not the only one, right? There's a lot of people that just love college football. So the content you create, that niche, it's unique. There's not a lot of people doing exactly what you're
because
doing.
I live it. Because I've been living it for 2 decades. That's the point.
Exactly.
It was 20 years ago that this all sort of started and, morphed. And I've been doing this longer than anyone. And frankly, that skill set, and it's Malcolm Gladwell in Blink and in Outliers. If any of you read the New York Times bestseller, another Canadian, Respect to Mr. Gladwell. But, it's putting in the 10,000 hours I didn't know I was putting in by studying week-to-week collegiate player performance for college fantasy football when no one in the world was really doing it. I honed that skill set and then was able to transfer that over to the prop game, which I've been very successful with. And I think is more successful than anybody, frankly. I think 67% each of the last 4 years. So it's been a wild ride. And I didn't know how that was college fantasy football was going to affect my life down the line. But here we are.
So when did you arrive at NBC Sports and Rotoworld?
I arrived. So in 2017, I was listening to podcasts as they came out, mostly wrestling podcasts. Actually, Bruce Pritchard, Something to Wrestle With, was a big one. I'm a wrestling fan. That's The Rock right there, is like an old Rock.
Nice.
And here's Ric Flair's autograph right there. That's
nice.
So, I'm a big wrestling fan from being younger. And what was I talking about? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Just NBC Sports. Like, when did you arrive?
Yeah, NBC Sports. So I was listening to those podcasts, and they were a whole new genre, and it just absolutely blew me out. I was like, oh, this is going to change everything. This is radio without the onerous commercials that is distilled down into long-form conversations about topics that get into very specific detail. And for a baseball, because I came up in baseball stats. I love wonky stats and data and stuff like that. Like I'm a total geek. In another life, I'd be a data analyst and what have you. But I guess in essence I am. But listen to that. I'm like, oh well, this is going to serve niches. This is what this is going to do. This is going to grow specific targeted content. I'm like, oh, I have to do a college fantasy podcast. Like, I have to do this. This is going down. So I proceed to do like 25 of them with just my buddies, and I had never done this. I was a journalism minor, and I wrote for my local town paper, like covering sports for like, I don't know, a couple of years. But we're talking about it as limited as journalism credentials get. I was in sales, real estate, marketing. That's what my degree was, in management. So, business. So I had real life 9-to-5ers my whole life leading into this. So I guess just listening to those really spurred me on to do that, and then led me to Twitter, which led me to writing for Dynasty Football Factory, which is just a free website. I don't think it even exists anymore. But I just wanted to get out there. Like, I have to write. I want to get my writing out there because I've always been a talented writer. So for whatever reason, I couldn't do math. I could do that. So started writing for free for that platform, and then got to befriend Thor Nystrom, who was the original lead college football analyst for NBC Sports until he left for Fantasy Pros, who he's now the lead college football analyst Fantasy Pros. And I just slid literally right into his job. So he, to his credit, my friend still, always will be. And he discovered me. It was just, I had 200 followers. I put out some stuff. I did a column on Drew Lock versus Bryce Perkins, because that's relevant here in 2024, that conversation. And I put 2,000 words to it, and it was pretty well written enough to get his attention. Asked him for a call, had a call with him. It's like, look, I know you can't give me, I know I'm nothing, but look, I'm going to keep putting out stuff, and I appreciate any input. If there's any leagues I can get in, please let me know. I'm in. I want in. And he was like, all right, sounds good. So immediately he got me into a couple expert leagues. One of them was an IDP league with 20 teams. It was Dynasty. I took over a roster where the guy essentially like quit, 13 rounds into a 25-round draft, rebuilt it, and actually had a winning season the year I rebuilt it. After a couple of losses, I took over mid-season and then was able to go to the finals against Hayden Winks in the final year when Hayden had mortgaged his entire future, the SOB that he is. And then we dissolved the league. I lost to him I should have played Mike Glass quarterback Eastern Michigan over Anthony Gordon, who was my Binky boy quarterback. Oh, I loved Anthony Gordon for Washington State running the air raid. Oh, he was putting up he was basically Bailey Zappi before Bailey Zappi. And I started Gordon against Washington's stout pass defense. Was a bad idea. I should have started Glass, and it gave Hayden the win. So damn you, Hayden. And and that's how I kind of got my bones. So I was like, oh, this guy's good. Did the 50-teamer, which he does every year, the 50-team College Football National Championship. Was the number 1 seed out of all of them, number 1 point scorer, number 1 in the first round of the playoffs, got demolished in the second round. But, each was very, very competitive. And I've continued to be in all my leagues very competitive. So he noticed that. And then when there was in 2019 an opening before the season, 5 days before the season started, Hayden went up. Connor Allen went from being like floaters between college and pro. They went to pro. And because they wanted to be pro, they were sort of doing it just to do it, the stepping stone. And then I got one of the 2 open part-time spots alongside Derek Clausen, who's also a mensch and a great guy and a K-pop aficionado. Derek Clausen, my friend, who I got to see at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine, another incredible analyst you should follow. So brought us in, and Derek went on to do the Football Outsider, the Bleacher Report, and I forget where he is. I forget where he is now. And then I stayed and grinded out those blurb hours, cranking out player profiles on Saturdays for 4 years at NBC. So I never went to a game and with a press pass for the first 4 years I was there until they finally did away with blurbs. And I'm like, all right, enough. I'm unshackled. I'm going to a game.
Yes.
In fact, I'm going to 10 this year. And luckily, I got to watch most of them from the sidelines. So
that's awesome.
That answer your question?
That was a beautiful answer. It was a perfect answer. So how do you stay sane during this time of year with all the draft hype where everyone's like diving in, discovering these rookies, analyzing these rookies, and the rookies coming in for the first time, it seems, right? Where you've been following these players for years, right?
It's old.
Like the hype that just goes, like example, for me personally with like Odunze. I mean, obviously he's pretty steady, but with Penix, like just the roller coaster of, oh yeah, man, he's gonna be, top 10, and then he's gonna be out of the first round, and then now he's top 15. Like how do you manage that when there's all this chaos around you? Do you kind of also change a lot of your perspectives on things while new data is coming in with all the analysis and combine and all that, or do you just kind of stay steady and just watch it all unfold?
Because I've been studying these guys, and I have to. I don't have a choice. They come in. I do a ton of dynasty. I like long form. I'm not it's the 1 season leagues and you're out. Seasonal, that doesn't get me going. I already got that out of my system, 15 years ago, of just the single player leagues. I like dynasty. I've always done at least a keeper league, forever. The building aspect of college is one of the roots and the foundations of it. You can only have this. There's not like a true dynasty aspect because you can only have these guys for a limited amount of time. There's no getting Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen and Superflex and just they're yours forever. No.
Yeah.
Like you got to always be flipping over. You got to always be creating, always thinking about tomorrow, like Fleetwood Mac says. So I love the dynasty and the building aspect of things. So I'm all over. I go to the Elite 11 camps. I go to the high school stuff. I caught passes from Julian Sayin last year. And I caught like a 50-yard bomb too, over the shoulder, straight up over the shoulder, Willie May style. So that's the kind of athlete you're dealing with here.
I believe that. I've seen you on the field, like at that that flag football tournament. Like I'm like that guy right there. He's got the it factor right there.
Natural. If I was in my slightly younger days, I would probably be a lot more potent downfield weapon. As it stands, Des Bryant. I tried to run an out and up on Des Bryant last year, and he picked it off. Yeah. Put me in my place. It's like, you think you're gonna beat me with out and up? You stood there. Yeah, later Froton, I'm gonna pick this. So that was humiliating. That was a tough one for my ego to take. But this is Des Bryant. It was Des Bryant, and at least I racked up a win over Michael Irvin in mini hoops at the FSGA the previous year. In that one, where I was hitting the long distance three, I was showing Michael Irvin. I was like, Michael Irvin has a floating elbow, so when he's shooting, it's going like that. Michael, you got to keep that elbow in. You got to gooseneck. Come on, baby. And he picked it up after some of my shooting lessons, of course.
I've witnessed all this stuff, so
it actually happened.
This is great. I've seen it. I've seen all this stuff. I love it.
Dude, some of the wild things I got to do over the past couple of years.
Oh my gosh! And how about this? Let's talk a little bit about the expo again. This karaoke. I mean, there's nobody. When I think karaoke, I think Eric Froton. When I think of just beautiful melodies, I think of that duet with Denny Carter, like that moment where you just took over that little place.
I don't know. When I think beautiful
Jose's
melody, I think Britt Flynn when I think beautiful melody.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily in my wheelhouse.
Hey man, when you're running around the room,
you for saying that.
You're running around the little, I don't know, Jose's Cantina, George's Cantina. Well, I don't even know the names anymore. But running around that place. Jose's Landing. Yeah, Jose's Landing. Running around that place. It's not big, but you making that round, like that was a move no one pulled off until you did it. And then
that's a Froton original right there.
And then
during the
In Living Color, the cult of personality, like that performance jumping on the table. Talk to me, like what kind of prep went into that? What's the mindset heading into the expo with knowing you're about to deliver some goods?
Sure. And first off, anytime we're going to talk karaoke, I like to make sure, it's not just myself. While I do feel like I was one of the forefathers and forerunners of this, look, you had Jake Trowbridge on here.
Yeah.
You had Herms. As mentioned, Britt Flynn. Good. I know Howard Bender is an ace. I want Howard on that stage, this year. But I mean, there's so many, and we got to be exposed to more of the talent out there in the fantasy football community this year, thanks to the great Bob Lung.
Yes.
Right. Yes. The wise man, Bob Lung, the architect of the expo, heeding my brilliant advice to bring the karaoke on site. Instead of us going into an Uber and trying to the horrible process it is trying to find an Uber back from that place at 2 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
In Columbus on a Sunday night. It's a horror show. Yeah. Luckily, as mentioned, I really don't drink, so I'm the designated driver for my group. But it's horrible for everyone else. That's right. I'm not drunk when I'm even doing these things. That's the craziest part. But now it's in the hotel. It's at the DoubleTree where we're all staying, which is home base right there in Canton proper, in the thoroughfare of Canton. So we got to see everybody. Everybody got to join in, and it was quite a spectacle. That being said, the preparation went into my particular thing. I knew that after myself and my good friend and coworker, colleague, the great Low T, Denny Carter, brought the house down in a very high testosterone performance from Denny and myself doing Under Pressure.
Yeah.
Which, you don't think about the song that is Under Pressure. It's my personal favorite song of all time. It's number one. And you don't realize the big finish of Under Pressure and the crescendo and the power that are in those words from David Bowie and Freddie Mercury in a very sincere manner. I mean, this is an iconic, incredible song. And, you hear it and you think, it's, you hear the Vanilla Ice beat, but then the big finish, when you're in the room and the emotion is being conveyed, you realize like, oh my God, this is such a powerful song. Yeah. And it truly is. And I feel like we had a brief moment there with Denny and I laying into that song and had a really great moment a couple years ago. So I knew.
Yeah.
And then I went up and I did an encore, if you remember, which was.
Oh, I remember it all. Yeah.
That's when I didn't have time to kind of go do the tour de force because I was up there with Denny and we had, that it whips through. It whips through Under Pressure. You don't have time. Yeah. You have a solo in Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where I did Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which is a sing-along, everybody knows the words, an anthem, a crescendo, starts low, finishes high. It has all those elements that a really good song selection of karaoke has. And that's really important when you're doing it, because when you have to have karaoke, you're not stroking yourself off. You're there for the group. You have to be selfless. Keep eyes on the prize here. It's not about you. It's about everybody has a good time, and then you can have a good time. So that's always important. But when I did that and then did the walk around the room to the perfectly timed coming back and the finish, that set a standard that I knew everybody's going to be expecting this past year in 2023. Now it's on site. Now everybody's going to be there. Everyone's going to get to see everyone doing this for 4 hours. So how can I can't just go up there and play the hits. I can't do the same things I've done before. Nor would I, because I'm an artist. I'm a Renaissance man. Let's be honest. Da Vinci, myself, kindred spirits. So I'm driving. I knew that I had to create. So I'm driving from Tennessee, where I was visiting my parents, up to Ohio. That's a good solid 6 hours, maybe 7, from Nashville. And doing that drive, and I'm cranking through songs. I've got the playlist going, and I'm trying to, what catches me? What's the song? What's the right thing? And then Cult of Personality comes on, which also has the parallel of being the first and one of the very few tapes I ever purchased. I purchased Living Colour's debut Vivid on tape. My first tape. Nice. I technically purchased Vernon Reid, Corey Glover, Muzz Skillings, all of them. Appreciate all those guys. Big Living Colour fan. So that before CM Punk made it his anthem, that was a special song to me anyway. So I love the song. And then as I'm going through it, it hits the crescendo. And I'm like, Cult of Personality. I'm like, at first, my first inclination was, the Cult of College Fantasy, because it rolls perfect. The Cult of College Fantasy. But then I'm like, I'm not at a college fantasy football conference. And the audience that I'm playing to is an NFL audience, While I would like to stroke my own ego and insert my own agenda into this, that would not be the proper move for the setting. So
no, it's for the people.
You got to read the room. You got to do it for the people, So, and the good thing is, since I knew there'd be people there that I could call out, I started going through like Weird Al would in a non-humorous manner, in a more straightforward. Started going through fantasy terms as the song goes through, and it was real easy, and the pacing's easy, so you can understand it. Where I'm not like buzzing through a song, I can enunciate well enough where you can see, oh, that's a subtle change, and that's a change.
Yeah.
And then, you come to the part where it's like Mussolini and Kennedy. You got, I'm like, and Matthew Berry and Scott Fish. I'm the Cult of NFL Fantasy. The Cult of NFL Fantasy. So I went through that. And I'm like, ooh, I can call people up. Like, hopefully Denny is there. Maybe I can call a couple of my friends. And then Scott Engel was there. I got to call him out, So I'm like, whoever's there, okay, boom, here's Scott Engel. All right, there's Derek Brown. I think D-Bro. I called him out. So they have these natural beats in the song where you're calling out, they were calling out world cult-ish figures, good or bad. And I could do the same in the NFL space. So it all just came together it just all mixed. Where I was like, oh, well, there it is. So I then had to go and I listened to that song, I don't know, 25 times, because I had to put in my own lyrics. Yeah. And I had to remember my own lyrics, and I had to sit there as I'm not driving, voice texting the lyrics into my the phone so I can remember it and I can study it. And we were going for 2.5 hours, before I got up. Maybe even 3 out of 4, because I didn't want to go up right away.
Yeah.
And to that whole factor, and to the song selection was great. I went right after the guys who did Milli Vanilli. Dude,
that's perfect.
Thank you, whoever you are out there, if you're watching this, who decided to do "Girl, You Know It's True." Oh, no, they did Blame It on the Rain. They did Blame It on the Rain, which, hey, fine. If you like Blame It on the Rain, that's fine. But it wasn't the biggest hit for the venue. And the guy didn't realize what he was getting into when he went up and chose Blame It on the Rain, Milli Vanilli. He thought it didn't go the way he thought. So that helped. Not going to lie. But that's the last element of that was the table.
The table.
It's more accurately 2 tables.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, at the beginning, like all those tables are spaced out. There wasn't much room, and we had to push them back.
Yeah.
So as I was pushing them back, I'm testing the table like any good stuntman, right? So I'm testing it and I'm feeling it, and that thing was a big table, big, solid, heavy. Like it was hard to move. It was rooted. It wasn't like I was jumping on one of those flimsy lunch tables that folds up with wheels that I was going to take and it was going to wobble. I knew I had a solid space to work with, but it was narrow. And I couldn't tip off what was about to happen by moving the place settings that were already there. So there's a high degree of difficulty with not hitting the place settings. And if you see in the video, I tap dance right around those place settings. Didn't touch any of them.
Yeah,
it was nothing touched. It was like a flowery type thing. There was glass and silverware.
It was spectacular.
Yeah,
the vert required to accomplish that move is next level.
Tall table.
Yeah, it was a tall table.
Short tables.
It was not a short table.
No, they weren't low tables. Those some big boy tables.
Yeah,
and that's where the 6'3" basketball background. I've dunked thousands of times.
It's where it all came together.
I was obsessed with it as a basketball player growing up. So like my hops, no problem. Yeah, I knew I'd be fine on that. But if you noticed, when I jumped up on the table, it was after I wanted to repeat the spot. After I went around the circular bar during the guitar solo.
Yeah.
And I had a nice some momentum heading into it. So I didn't broad jump. Because that's like a 4-foot broad jump. You know? Yeah. That's serious business. So at least probably like a good 3.5 feet. Maybe not 4 foot. Like it's probably a good 3.5 feet. Solid. So that's not like a vertical. I had a little momentum going in. I was always a 1-foot jumper to get up and to bang, to dunk. So that's what really helped. The long legs and having a couple of steps where I could 1, 2, 3, boom, and explode up. And because I had the second table, the tables were right between each other. I actually, if you notice, because I had the momentum, I go up, I hit it, and then I actually step on the second table, pivot, and then come back around and stand on the first one. But it was good that second table was there because I needed that momentum to get up on the damn thing.
Yeah, the choreography was fantastic. It was delivered. I mean, we all delivered. We all experienced greatness that day. It's a perfect example of some of the fun stuff that happens at the expo.
Exactly.
So you got to get to Canton, Ohio if you're interested in the expo.
Personified.
Exactly.
Honestly, there's nothing else that can compare to it in terms of if you like fantasy football, you want to be around, and it's all. I mean, if you follow fantasy football to the level that a lot of people do, and you know these analysts, they're all there, all of them for the price of admission. It's not like it's that like prohibitively expensive either. Like it's a cheap day. It's just a matter of getting there, and all these guys are there. Like Ian Harditz and Denny and like you said and Scott Fish, and countless others. I don't even want to name them because they're NFL guys. Or I forget, but. All those, most of them are here.
Yeah,
MG and Ray G, and, and
JJ and Matt Harmon showed up this last year, and everyone's coming back. The return rate,
everybody had a good time.
Yeah,
everyone
comes back, so that tells you something, right? Yeah,
all of them come back. Everyone has a great time, and it keeps getting a little bit better each year. And Bob takes a little bit, he does a little bit more, and they're talking about a 2-day. Saturday and Sunday potential, this year. I'm not sure how that would work out, but like in terms of exhibits and stuff, and things as opposed to just cramming into one. And like that makes so much more sense. You get so much more out of it. It keeps getting better every year. Definitely
Every year. For sure, for sure. Now, when it comes to, again, all your, everything you're doing with college football, you got the draft ahead of us. You have just a couple sleepers that you're excited to see where they land?
Yeah, obviously. And the thing, and I kind of got off on a tangent. I'm good at that. When it comes to this class, when you talked about drilling into it and getting into it, and if my opinions change, the good thing is because I dig so far into these guys, my opinions about who they are as players don't really change with the combine stuff. I feel like I can evaluate kind of what they are pretty well. With wide receivers, it does help. I feel like I like to see them move. With the running backs, I had this top 4, 5. I've had them pegged since the preseason, and that's not often with this running back class. Like it was an up and down. It was variable. Jalen Wright, Trey Benson. I wrote an article with Fantasy Pros about how he's my number 1 sleeper at running back. Marshawn Lloyd, I have him and have had him for a couple years in the C2C Invitational CC. I'm excited to cash that ticket. He's a stud. I can't believe he wasn't more well thought of coming into the season. He needed to go to USC to boost his value. Jonathan Brooks admittedly kind of came out of nowhere because he was behind Bijan Robinson and Roshan, right, at Texas. Like it's not like we really knew about him, but Blake Corum is a pretty fitting RB5. So like those 5 RBs, been my top 5 pretty much the whole time. I haven't been particularly enamored with Braylon Allen. I think his feet are very slow. But Bucky Irving is a $190. And he ran a 4.55. That ain't gonna fly. You got to be in the 4.3s. I thought it'd be quicker than that. That ain't gonna happen. So like that helped evaluation purposes, but with the wideouts, guys that I like down the board, I think this is a damn good class. And it feels like the space creators are the ones who translate the most quickly and the most efficiently to the modern day NFL. And it used to be a problem if you were under 180 pounds, at that 180 or under mark. But then you see Zay and Downs and Dell, and Addison, those guys. They're not huge guys. Any of them aren't particularly big, and they all thrived this year because they're all elite space creators. They know the nuances. Their breaks are clean, and you see that sort of thing with Ladd McConkey. You just do. It's there. You can't fake getting the kind of space, the kind of separation, the kind of route manipulation. He's just so savvy and advanced. And with the way he tested, he runs in the 4.4, like right 4.41.
Yeah.
Man, give it to me. Give it to me. He's got it. I don't care. I don't care about the 5'18", 190 profile, 5'11". That's not a detriment anymore in this day and age. And going down the board in the 4th, 5th round of what I perceive to be rookie drafts. So I'm talking dynasty rookie drafts, 4th round and above. I've been saying this. Like what I don't like about this is I've known these guys. I've been looking at these guys for so long. So when I've been talking about Malik Washington for I've been trying to get people to understand it. Hey, yeah, sleeper. Every time I talk on a show, everybody talk one. You want a deep sleeper? It's Malik Washington. And it seems like finally people are coming around to just what a freak this guy is. Because I don't care how small he is. He got an absolute ton of targets, and he cashed them in at Virginia. And then he goes out and he dominates the Shrine Bowl. I can't believe he didn't get a kick up to the Senior Bowl. He's got to be there. So for somebody who's a non-Senior Bowl, non-elite guy invitee, it's Malik Washington. And I'll also go with another Washington. I love Taj Washington from USC. I love Taj Washington. I think he's another elite space creator. Both of those guys, small, thin. Don't have that sort of AJ Brown profile, but deep guys that you look in dart throws 5th round, 4th round. It's Malik Washington for me, baby. Give it to me.
Nice.
3rd round, I love Pearsall. If you can get your hands on him, 5th round. Taj, Kamani Vidal, deep running back sleeper out of Troy. 5'8", 212, 215, just a bowling ball type of guy. But
Yeah.
incredible contact balance. He catches passes. Like, he's just an unnatural frame that I think could really translate with that sort of ability and contact balance he has for his body structure. So
Yeah.
I love that frame. And I'm not ready to write off, in a similar vein, Mayan Williams, who has just no buzz, just nothing. He's got no buzz out there at all. Nobody cares about Mayan Williams out there. And that guy broke 40% of his tackles in 21 and 22. He was hurt all year in 23. Elite tackle breaker. I look at him and I kind of comp him to Ramondre in that sense, in terms of his feet.
Yeah.
He doesn't catch the ball like Ramondre did coming out of Oklahoma. I was in love with Ramondre. He was, him and Elijah Mitchell from that class were my two mega hits, because there was no combine testing in 2020. And I wrote a column in February saying, hey guys, you got to get them. So I think you're going to see those guys accrue value.
Well, there you go. If you love Dynasty football content, make sure you're following Eric, because you want to hear these players. You want to hear these names, far before the season ends. Right before the draft. Like follow along, Eric. The whole journey. Get involved with learning more about college fantasy football, and you're going to be ahead of the game when it comes to Dynasty. I want to definitely get you back on sometime later spring.
I would say not even just me, in terms of if you're following for getting better. If you want to get better at Dynasty, real easy. Easiest thing in the world is to get better at Dynasty. You know how you do that? You join a college fantasy football league. Don't just listen to me. You play college fantasy football, you are going to absorb this information. There's no better way of absorbing information than by doing. It's why you saw me with the Phil Steele Football Magazine. Would write down every player hard way. I wouldn't type it in. I mean, we had computers back then, because it's retention. You memorize it. When you were in the weeds and you were doing it and you were handling the player rotation, you're watching their performance, you're watching what's happening, and then you're naturally going through their game film to try to evaluate them. You're going to get better. Even if it's for campus to Canton purposes, if you want that natural step up from college to pros, do it that way. But if you play college fantasy in some way, you can't help but get better.
It's true, and it even helps at the end of the day with redraft. I mean, obviously in redraft, people you want to know these names right ahead of time, and that's how you get it. Dive deep in, enjoy the content, find content creators like Eric. There's others out there, but where can they find you? Where can the listeners and viewers find your stuff?
You can find me obviously at NBC Sports, where I just released the 2024 NFL Draft Betting sort of symposium. I forget what I even called it, but my betting market analysis is, I believe, what it is. Every single pick, you get at least a feel for what we're dealing with, what I think there's potential edge, where the market is going. So at least when you're evaluating it, where is the market right now? Is that somewhere you think you can exploit it? Here's a potential edge. There's a potential edge. Something to at least give you a little, sprinkle of fun when you're watching the NFL draft this year. And I also am doing a college fantasy football podcast over at Fantasy Points with Josh Chevalier, Mike Bainbridge, and Zach Hall. 4 guys who all are absolute 100% experts in the field of college fantasy football. If you want to hear us break down players, this all translates to NFL. So we just did the top 10 running backs that'll be going today. You hear the depth at which we get into these guys, and you're going to feel like, all right, well, these guys, this is serious business in our evaluation in terms of where we're going, our performance analysis. So everything I do, I get into as hard and as deep as I possibly can. 2020, 2023, just won the FSWA College Sports Writer of the Year Award, which I'm very proud to do. And I will also be promoting, Fantrax, which is the only place you can play college fantasy football, is Fantrax. We owe them a debt of our gratitude. There's no sleeper for us. There's no ESPN. There's no CBS. There's nobody. There's no Yahoo. There's nothing. There's just Fantrax for college fantasy football. So if you want to play in a college fantasy football season-long league, get over on me, college fantasy football site, campus2canton.com. They do excellent work. And get into a college fantasy football league on Fantrax.
There you go. And on X, it's CF Froton, right?
CF Froton, College Fantasy Froton.
There we go.
The idea, I probably could have branded it something else, but I love my college fantasy.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And we, I think it's
go
fantastic. Everything you do.
Rotoworld. I was going to go
Rotoworld. Maybe another account. You can get a burner. Rotoworld. I love it.
Pigeonhole myself too much in case my career has a divergent path. So I went with CF
for sure.
Instead of Froton.
I think you nailed it. We'll definitely try to get you back on in like the springtime, kind of see where all these players land, break some stuff down, learn a little bit more about you at that time as well. But until then, hopefully I'll see you in Boston at FSGA, and obviously we'll see each other in Canton, Ohio, 2024, August.
Thank you to the award-winning FSGA, Kevin Murray.
Thanks, my man.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.